Welcome to this week's video. We're going to be doing an RCM repair on a 2023 Ford Bronco. Then we'll be moving on to the programming and then the ADAS calibration. Stick around throughout the rest of this video because I'm going to be sharing some tips and tricks with you as regarding Ford and how some cool stuff that you may or may not know. And also, I'm going to be saving you a lot of troubleshooting steps if you are doing something like this yourself. Now, before we get into this video fully, I would like to thank each and every one of you that have been supporting this channel for the 7 years it's been alive. That's right. I've had this channel for 7 years. I do this strictly as a hobby. I love making videos. I started out doing cinematic stuff, which I'd like to do again at some point, and it kind of evolved into just working on cars, everything about cars, etc. And it's finally gotten to a point to where it has been monetized, and it is all thanks to you guys. I do have some plans for a video dedicated to that, but to be honest, it's going to take some finances, so it's not on the top of the list right now. But it just happened this last week, and I just want to thank each and every one of you that continue to support this channel. And if you're new to this channel, maybe consider leaving a like and possibly sharing this video or any one of my other videos to a friend. All right, that wraps up the whole intro there. Let's get started right into this video. So first, a little background as to why we're doing the RCM replacement and so on and so forth. I do mechanical, electrical, diagnostics, ADAS. I do pretty much everything but body because I work with insurance companies where I go to body shops that are having body work done to the vehicles, but then there's also mechanical issues or electrical issues or other ADAS related issues that the body techs can do themselves or don't have the equipment to do it. Now, I always start with jobs like these taking out the front seats. The service information states that you don't have to take out the front seats. You can simply slide them back and forth to get the center console out to get to the RCM. But in my experience, the amount of time it takes to take out the front seats is no more than a few minutes each, and it saves you a lot of time in the long run. Plus, depending on who you're working for, if this is your profession, you might be able to get, some extra hours out of it as well. And because these are power seats, as you can see, I slide them back and then get to the bolts here, which is 4 13mm bolts in total. And when I have the bolts loose, I disconnect the battery because we're going to be working with the SRS system. And if the battery stays connected, you could run into an issue where accidental deployment could go off with the airbags. So once you get that out, it's just the connectors underneath the seat. There's 2 of them on each side. Unhook those, pull the seats out. Next, we're going to remove the glove box by pushing downward on the hook and then push inwards on the side to bring the glove box itself to the floor, lift up, and that's it. Then we're going to pull the driver's side lower panel, firmly just pull it out, and it should pop right out. The center lower panel with the climate control has 1 7mm bolt on each side of it. Take those out and just firmly pull outwards and then disconnect the connectors. Now, in order to remove the center console, which is slightly different on the Bronco than a lot of other vehicles that I've worked on, the Bronco has what I like to call an oh crap bar. It's on the passenger side, and it is actually held on by 2 T30 bolts. Now, this should be taken out before you pull the climate control off, because if not, the climate control and lower panel there in the center won't be able to pull out. But once you have that off, the climate control and that lower panel should just slide right out. Now, as far as the center console goes, there is 4 7mm bolts, 2 up front, 2 in the rear, and there is also 2 in the center holding what looks like a brace. It is really long and cheap, thin plastic, so it is there to hold it sturdy in the center of the vehicle. Now, with all that done and out of the way, you can get to the RCM. It is 2 8mm bolts on the side of the tunnel. Once you have that off, you can lift up, and then there is the RCM, which is held down by 3 10mm bolts. You'd want to first disconnect this connector, slide it up and over, disconnect the other connector, and then you can pull the RCM right out and replace it with the new one. And then basically you just install the whole thing in reverse order and you're done with that. Now, I want to say, if you've been following me for a while, all over my social medias, I guess, for that matter, you would know I am not a fan of American vehicles, specifically Chrysler. Hate Chrysler with a passion, but GM is a good close second. And then there's Ford. The Bronco here is actually super simple to work on. This is actually a very easy car to, it is like the bare basics of what needs to be held down. and it's actually really nice. But then again, this whole video I've been working on the inside. Maybe I should wait and save that statement for when I have to do actual motor work on it. But the next step is the programming, and for this we are using OE software. Now at the end of this, I'm gonna show you a little tip and trick here with Ford if you didn't already know. But I'm gonna leave a little suspense and tell you, I like to use my Altel to always check first if I can do programming on the Altel. And there's a reason why, especially with Ford, mainly with Ford and Mazda. But in this case, we weren't able to do that, so we're moving on to the OE software, which for this we are using the fdrs system here. Now the programming for this is pretty simple. All you want to do is follow the on-screen instructions. Make sure you have the car on, engine off. Highly recommended to have a battery maintainer hooked up. If you don't have a battery maintainer hooked up, this process typically goes by pretty quickly, but it's important to have a maintainer because if the car does die on you or you just suddenly lose connection while it's programming, that's a good way to completely destroy a brand new module. Now you can see here I have a few DTCs, and one of them is for the ABS system, which is a calibration of the longitude sensor, which is related to the RCM concern. This is one of those troubleshooting steps. Believe me, if you've never done this before, you might be racking your brain about it. So after programming the RCM here, and you still have that ABS code, I would try to do the calibration of the longitude sensor before diagnosing any further. Now, remember how I said a little bit ago how I like to try to use the Altel for programming with Ford? I'm going to show you that right now. You may not know about this. Whether or not you do this as a hobby or a profession, this might save a lot of time, especially on older vehicles like pre-2018, something older. All right, so if you have yourself an Altel or a scan tool that can do programming, that allows programming, I currently have an Altel Maxi System 909. With that particular diagnostics tool, I can program, I can do ADAS, I can do pretty much anything with it as long as it allows me to do so. And if you have one of those diagnostic tools yourself or something that can do it, you would go here to motorcraftservice.com. You can't see it because my camera's in the way, but the links for these are going to be in the description below. You can find them there. You'd go here on the main page, and as far as I know, this is open to the public. I could be wrong. If I am and you know something different, please let me know in the comments. I'm absolutely good with constructive criticism. But you'd go down here to the module build data as built. You would simply enter a VIN, which I have a random VIN right there, random VIN right here. Make sure you're not a robot, which is, hope not. And boom, now you have a list of all of these numbers and stuff. Now, this Ford is a little different. This VIN that I just randomly found is a little different. So sometimes they'll tell you which module, other times it'll have this. And then when you pull it up on your Altel, it will start with, let's go with something a little easy, but not too easy. Fuck it, 716. So it'll come up with this, and then you'll put in this code, and then it'll come up with this, and then you'll put in this code. It'll come up with this, and then you'll put in this code, etc., etc. Even down here, when it gives you this, you're going to put all three of these codes together in the box. And then you just keep following it until you run out of the same number. So it's 720.01.01. It would stop at 720.07.02. You'd put in all these numbers. Every time I would bring this up, you'd put all these codes in respectfully. And then after that, it's the modules program. You're done. Now on Ford, I've seen this, the newest vehicle I was able to do this on was a 2016. Mazda, because Mazda's technically Ford in a lot of the sense, you go over to mazdaserviceinformation.com, again, link down below. You'll get this website, PCM reflashing. And then you go to the as built for all Mazda vehicles. It'll bring you a new tab. You put in your VIN, same deal. List of codes. You enter them in as you see them on your Altel, and you'll be good to go. Now, something that I do love about Ford in that sense is it makes programming and stuff like that very accessible to the average day person. You don't have to be a Ford technician or something like that to have access to some of the stuff that you need to properly repair your vehicle. All right, and the last thing here, I didn't film too much of this because I am filming everything on my phone. I'm waiting to get something a little more POV like, but I want to briefly touch on the ADAS for this vehicle, doing the calibration for it. A lot of American vehicles tend to do a dynamic calibration, which is very simple to the core. You simply drive it around. I will be doing more videos later on, more in depth on calibrating the ADAS, but I wanted to briefly talk about it in this video because I did have issues trying to calibrate it because I was using Ford's FDRS software, which I wanted to keep using because I was using it to program, do all the relearns and resets and configurations and all that stuff on all, you know, the new module and everything else corresponding with it. I was like, the hell with it. I'll just calibrate it through the software because you can do that too. I ran into an issue where once I got it on the road, I would start the calibration and it would not even do anything. It would just stay at 0% the entire time. I did this about 3 times before I decided to try my Altel. That's when I started doing configurations of other modules and et cetera, because sometimes that could be the case. However, in this particular situation, it was simply just the hardware I was using. So I swapped over to my Altel, went through the ADAS calibration tab and did the calibration there, drove it out to the main road. And as soon as I got in between the lanes, I guess, you know, so it can see the white lines and yellow lines and all that, I would hit the calibrate button and it just started working right away. So sometimes it could be the tool you're using too, for whatever reason. I don't know why. I don't ask that many questions. I just swapped it out and it worked. And I said, cool, I'm getting paid. But driving the vehicle for dynamic calibrations to where it needs to be, sometimes they'll have you do like 40 miles an hour. So you want to make sure you start the calibration as you're on the road. That way it gets the most accurate reading it possibly can get after it's been repaired. On top of that, there is some dynamic calibrations, like vehicles have a 360 view. Unfortunately, this Ford didn't have one, but if it did, it would have had me drive it in a big parking lot with a bunch of parking spaces under 5 miles an hour. And that one takes a long time to calibrate. Just saying, if you have to do those, that I hope that car has AC if you're in Texas. And lastly, before I hop out of here, the reason why we do the ADAS calibration at the very end of everything, especially with collision to vehicles, is because when a vehicle gets repaired, a bumper taken off, put back on, repainted, whatever the case may be, that all changes the way it was that it came out of factory, if that makes sense. I'm bad at explaining stuff like that, but essentially we're all human. None of us are perfect. We're not robots. We don't put things exactly the way they go. We don't do paint exactly the way it was. All these things have a play in calibration. It is what it says, calibrating, you know. So sometimes it's like if you have a PlayStation or Xbox or something, you got to sometimes calibrate the controllers because they, over time, they get worn out. So you have, you know, your dead zone is different, all this other weird stuff, right? So you recalibrate it to go with how it is now. Essentially, that's the reason why we calibrate ADAS systems after it's been repaired from like an accident or something like that. So with that, I want to thank you guys all again for sticking around. Comment down below your favorite car manufacturer, and also comment down twice as much if you don't like Chrysler, because honestly, Chrysler can kick rocks. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys all in the next video. Bye-bye.